This week on Technically Managing.
Weren't you like taking water from the pool?
No, that was for my showering because,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, I got sick of not
That makes sense.
showering after a couple days. So I like went down and filled up some buckets of pool water.
I was literally calling my boyfriend and I was freaking out. I was just like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna have any clothes to wear. Like, what am I going to do? And of course,
Uh-huh.
we were going with his mom. So his mom was like, oh, you can wear my clothes. But I'm like, yeah, I still need underwear, you know?
Going back to what we were talking about, like vacation and getting away, it's like I feel like honestly, those moments where I get more pent up, I feel like I'm shutting down. I'm like trying to just kind of keep like frustration or whatever, and like I just like want to like scream, but like I don't really know what I want to even like I don't even want to scream at anyone or anything in particular, just like
Right.
some
You're just so
general like that death by a thousand paper cuts kind of thing. Getting
Mhm.
away, like getting good night's sleep,
It helps a
getting
lot.
a good workout, I'll get out of it. I'm like, oh, I was just burnt out and run down, and I need to stop thinking about work for a couple days. Like, there's not some like existential, like, I can't be who I am in my job kind of thing. It's just
Mhm.
more, like, I feel like it's almost like this more of like a repression or you're not taking, you're so focused on the tasks in front of you in your role that
Mhm.
you're ignoring the things that your body needs or your mind needs
Mhm.
outside of it, and like you feeling like you have to like lock up and go in that repression mode. It's just because you're ignoring yourself, and those like internal screams are just getting louder and louder, like, hey, stop ignoring me, there's things you have to attend to. And like I think that's especially like hard for like A types and people like us who like take our jobs seriously, because you get so focused on the task, and like part of what makes people successful is like, hey, there's going to be roadblocks and obstacles, but it's kind of like suck it up, deal with the pain, and move forward. But it's like, and sometimes you do just need to kind of put those blinders on and move. But like that's kind of like what I was getting at with the running versus sprinting. But you
Yeah.
like, yeah, sometimes you'll have to sprint, but you can't always sprint. Otherwise, like you're gonna crack, and there's gonna
Mhm.
be like negative consequences of it.
I just feel like, for example, for me, when I started working at Oracle, I was very divided in this is Ramu outside of work and this is Ramu at work. And one of the barriers that I would put myself was definitely not asking the questions that I wanted to ask because I was scared that I was going to sound stupid, right? So
Yeah.
that was like my professional Ramu because in reality, when I'm like outside of work, I would probably ask those questions because those were my questions and I didn't care what other people thought, right? But at work, it was more of like, I'm not going to, or I'm not, if they ask something very personal, I'm not going to answer, you know? And I feel like now I've learned to have a balance of, you know what, I'm gonna voice my opinion. If people are asking, I'm going to be honest with people and I'm actually going to give them my opinion, not my, oh no, everything is great, you know, just because I'm scared I'm gonna get fired or something, you know? Because
Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest problem of like the person having the second personality at work, you know, of like, oh, I'm professional Ramo right now. I'm not going to say anything dumb. I'm not going to voice my opinion or say whatever I really think because I'm scared of being fired, you know, and everything's gonna be terrible, right? Being so extreme with your thoughts.
And we're live. Welcome to Technically Managing 17, everyone, the podcast where we're technically managing in life and in our jobs as product managers at Oracle.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, we started catching up before we like started recording. We're like, we should probably save this for the podcast. So you were saying how you're getting over the flu right now.
Yeah. Yep. Take care of people. It's no joke right now.
Yeah.
And I'm always the type of person that never catches the flu. So yeah.
I feel like I've been pretty good. I'm trying to remember the last time I got sick. The last time I got sick was Cloud World, just like the day after when I just like collapsed from just like going. But I wonder how much of it is just like living in Austin where no, you're in Miami though. So it's like it's also really warm for you too. I feel
Yeah.
like the heat definitely helps here.
And I heard a lot of people get a lot of allergies after they moved to Miami. And I've heard the same about Texas too. Like the allergies get pretty wild when you move to those two states. So I'm not sure.
I think the allergies were actually worse for me when I lived in the Northeast. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know what it was, but I'm not sure if like in the Northeast when I was like growing up in New Jersey and like Philadelphia, if it was specifically allergies, but during winter, it would be pretty bad, just like nose getting all stuffy, like mucusy and all that stuff. But I'm also pretty sure the heaters, like constantly having like a heater going was just bad on my
Hmm.
system where it's actually we've had to use our heater like lately here. It's been started to get pretty cold. I think it was like 30 degrees this morning or something crazy. I was
Were
like
you
walk yeah, I like was like walking to the gym in the morning and I'm like it's freezing. I
Is
like
that
had
normal?
no, but Montana's like, "Oh yeah, it was like 35 this morning."
What? That is so
Like
crazy.
we woke up and it was like 60 in our apartment this morning because we just like had the thermostat set
Yeah.
to like only cool but not heat up. So we're like, oh,
Good.
gotta watch out for this. It'll be like wild. It'll still just like go back up to a warm day here and there, like even being December, and then it's like actually pretends it's winter here. But
I mean, do you remember the year that we started class off that you guys had that freezing
yeah, we
temperature?
had a snowstorm. I like moved to Austin and they like hit me with a snowstorm. I was like literally, I remember I was trekking from my apartment at the time. Everything just was like, no, we had a lot of people lost water and power. We
Mm-hmm.
had our power, but we lost water. So I was just like trekking down the street to like Home Depot to try to find like cases of water, like moving along through snow when like the whole streets were just covered.
Weren't you like taking water from the pool?
No, that was for my showering because
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, I got sick of not
That makes sense.
showering after a couple days. So I like went down and filled up some buckets of pool water. And I wasn't the only one doing that. There were like some other people in our complex.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's terrible. I love showering too, so you know.
Mhm. I miss it. We need another Austin snow day. It's like I work home remote, but like so it's not like I'm like technically I can still work, but I just I want something to like just throw off the schedule, you know what I mean? Just like something to like change it up a bit.
I was thinking about the same thing because you know how in Florida we have a lot of hurricanes.
Hmm.
I think there was one not so long ago, even though they didn't really report it as a hurricane. And this is like a thing. I feel like a lot of people probably have seen memes of how they say that every time that we're in a hurricane alert or whatever, Floridians are always living life pretty regular because they don't believe it, right? Because nothing ever happens. Um, at least like in South Florida. I want to say South Florida. People don't listen to that, you know. But that time, nobody really reported that there was going to be a hurricane and things got pretty bad. But of course, you can't be like, oh, you know, I can't go to work because, you know, you have internet at home, you have electricity normally. So, yeah, it's different now. But that time, a lot of people did lose electricity. So it was good for them, I guess. Good and bad because I don't like living without electricity, to be honest.
Yeah, makes things annoying. Speaking of like random days off and stuff, I was talking to Killian and Allie the other day, and we were taking a look at the vacation days we've taken because we're all just like, yeah, like being in PM's kind of odd just because we have unlimited vacation. So it's like it's both means something and like it feels completely meaningless. Have you looked at how many vacation days that you've taken this year?
Oh, I feel like I mean I did go to Europe, right? So I took like 2.5 weeks.
Oh yeah, you had
There.
yeah, yeah, we have to talk about that. We have to talk about your trip. Because we had the Layla episode last month and that was before it. But yeah, so you've like taken some vacation with that.
Yeah, yeah, that was, and honestly, I was also talking to Killian about it, right? And I told you as soon as I got back, I was like, you know, like I really needed this vacation. Like I didn't know I needed it, but I needed it so bad, you know? And I feel like sometimes we're like, okay, a week should be enough, right? But even like the first days of my taking off that week, my first week, I was still like thinking about work a little bit, you know? Compared to like my second week, I feel like I forgot that I worked. I forgot that money was a thing, you know. I was like I don't know, it's crazy because like you do get in autopilot, you know, and sometimes you get into like a point where you're like not like you're motivated, like you end up doing things that you have to do, you know, but you're not letting that creative side of you shine because you're so in autopilot, you know. So
Yeah, just
taking
like caught up
vacation
in
is
those like
so important.
cycles.
100%. And I told you, right, that sometimes I get a little bit of brain fog. I had no brain fog while I was in vacation. I came back so refreshed, and I think I haven't since I joined Oracle, I haven't really maybe once, but I haven't really taken a 2 week, you know, like straight up 2 weeks together of vacation. So I really recommend that to anyone and everyone. Once a year at least, take 2 weeks
I
to
think
like
that's probably why
refresh.
we have the unlimited policy. Like, even though it's kind of like it's fun to make fun of because they're like it makes it like more ambiguous and then you make excuses for not taking the time. But you do really need that, especially in a job like this, that time where it's like you don't really know when it's gonna happen, but it's like you're gonna just need to like unplug for a little bit. Cause like I even ran into the same thing with post cloud world when I just like, okay, I just like need a week off just to like reset. And like same thing with you. It's like you just get so burnt down and it's like even over the weekends and stuff, it's like you're doing chores, it's like your work stuff's still on your mind. And
Mhm.
it's like I can just feel myself getting like my brain just like slowing down. I say more like ums and uhs and can get like a little stuttery at times and just like getting away. Like during my week off, I think it took me until like Wednesday to get work off my mind. But like after that, I was like, oh, this is like I just feel like so much better. And even for Thanksgiving, I
Mhm.
went to see Montana's family in Southern California. And like I'm trying to remember how many. Yeah, we had a couple days off of that. I think I what I did was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I had a customer call. I'd like hop on quick in the morning, but I logged off like right after that. And then
Mhm.
like you have the whole weekend and like Thursday, Friday, we went to Disneyland, which was really fun. And just even being in a different environment, like away from just this
Yeah,
constant thing.
screens and
That
stuff
was
too.
something I noticed. It was like there's two components I've kind of like learned the past couple months that kind of contribute to like having a hard time resetting. The
Right.
first is just getting time away, where like during the week off, I was like still at home and stuff. So it took me a couple days, but I finally got like broken out of it. But one of the really bad things is like, and I like working at home, but one of the
Yeah.
bad things is when your office is also your home, like
Yeah.
seeing just ran
100%.
you just have these like random triggers like just being caused by your environment because you associate it with work or where it's like after the end of your work day or even on the weekend it's just like why can't I break from work. And I noticed just like being away from my apartment and like being in California, that helped me break it quicker too, just not having daily reminders of the things that I worry about, like etc.
Yeah, because it's so easy for you to like maybe get a Slack message and run into your computer and like check out something
Mhm.
after work hours, right? Or I don't know, like you might have a question that this happens to me all the time. I'm like cooking or something and I think about something and I'm like, oh, I should check it out, you know? And like I go and check it. So I think it's more of like the screen time sometimes, you know, like if we think about it, we're always on our computer, right, to work. Then we're on our phone, then we're on our, like maybe we're watching TV or something, you know, like it's so many screens around us, right? So for me, at least when I was in the cruise, of course I didn't have internet in the cruise, right? And when I was in land, I was just like looking around, walking, you know, like actually being outside the house all the time. So I definitely felt the reset in my mind, of like, okay, I'm refreshed, I'm ready. When I got back, I did feel like I needed a vacation from my vacation, but still, like, I'm a little more creative now. I feel like, I'm more motivated. I'm like getting things done, faster, easier. I don't know, with better ideas too, right? Because
Yeah.
that's our job. So it's so, so important.
But yeah, like yeah, just like even the same thing, like just my brain firing in like different directions and solving stuff quicker. It's like pretty crazy. But like how was the cruise though? Like I want to hear about you've told me a little bit about it, but like I want to hear like the details of like where'd you go? How was the trip? You do anything like fun?
Yes. So so the cruise was leaving out of Spain, from Barcelona, but I decided that I wanted to go see my mom because I feel like every time that I'm in Europe, I cannot just go without seeing my mom. So
Mhm.
I went to Gran Canaria to see my mom, and then I flew to Barcelona literally the day of the cruise. And it was crazy because for some reason there was I don't know how you call this in English, when people stop working because they're protesting.
A
How do you?
strike?
Yes, a strike. Yes. So there was a strike. So my luggage was not making it to like the pickup thing, right? Like, where they put all the bags.
Yeah, like the carousel, like
Yes,
where
the
it becomes
carousel. Yes. So
vocabulary with Zach and Ramu.
literally. So yeah. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and it wasn't coming out, and we were all waiting, right? So then we go to customer service, we ask, and they're like, "Oh, there's a strike." So we were like, "What does this mean?" Because what does this mean? So they were like, "Oh, your bags are here in Barcelona, but nobody's there to pick them up from the plane to put them in the carousel." So we were like, okay. So I was freaking out because I'm like, where are they? They were like, "Oh, but if anything, we'll send you the luggage to wherever you're staying." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm staying in a cruise, like
Oh my
I was
God.
freaking out. So, anyways, I waited literally I had to be at the cruise by like at the port by like 3:30, and I waited until like 2:30 at the airport. So I made it like right in time. I was able to get my bag, even though I didn't know if I was going to be able to get my bags or not. But I was so glad because imagine not having any clothes,
No,
like,
that's like, yeah, like on a cruise of all places.
yeah, I had nothing, like no underwear, no clothes, no nothing, only what I had on. So I was like, that was so stressful, but it was cool. This was my first time going on a cruise, and we went to two places in France. One was called Marseille, and the other one was Cannes. I don't know how you say them in English, okay? So um and then we went to Italy. We went Genova, Florence, Pisa, and Rome.
Nice.
And
Wait,
it
but how
was
did you get them back though? Like, did they just stop striking? I'm still like caught up on
yes.
that.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Yes, yes, they did stop striking.
Were
The
you like,
worst,
I could go out and get it myself? Like, that's the problem.
I was literally calling my boyfriend and I was freaking out. I was just like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna have any clothes to wear. Like, what am I going to do? And of
Uh-huh.
course, we were going with his mom. So his mom was like, oh, you can wear my clothes. But I'm like, yeah, I still need underwear. So I was calling him to tell him to like at least buy me some clothes. And I was freaking out a little bit. So I was like, what if we need to be there on time. So he was like, just wait until the last minute. Like, it's gonna be okay, right? And then they told us if they stop striking, it's called striking, right?
Yeah.
If they stop striking, they will put the bags in carousel, I don't know, one or two, let's say, right? So we had to be checking both of them, and everyone was running around, and then suddenly I saw my bag, but I was praying to everyone in this universe to like help me. It was so stressful. And I was telling them that I was going on a cruise, and they were saying that they have convenience with the cruise lines. So maybe they would be able to bring my bag to whichever port I stop at. But I'm
Uh-huh.
like, still, like, how
It's
do
like
you even?
leaving in an hour kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, like even if you
exactly.
get to the port, like we can like helicopter it in.
Like, you can literally be like, I can be in this port today, and tomorrow I'm gonna be in a different port. So you're gonna have to. followed me until I don't know when. I don't know. It was pretty stressful, but I got my bag. I
Okay.
got to wear my outfits, you know.
Didn't have to share clothes with your boyfriend's mom.
Oh my God, no, please.
That would have been fun.
So yeah, no, that was solved. I'm super glad. But yeah, it was super fun. I loved it. I definitely recommend. Have you gone to any places in Europe?
I've gone to London, Paris, and Berlin. Those are like the
Mm,
three I've hit before. Berlin's probably my favorite city I've gone to. I like went there for a month as like a mini study abroad in college. It was just
okay.
like the nicest city. It like everyone was like so friendly, spoke English, just like wandered
Yeah.
around. Like the food and drink was amazing. It was like pretty funny because like people would just like walk up to me and start speaking German, just like being like blonde hair, blue eyed. I just like went like wide eyed and they like looked at me kind of confused and then they paused and they're like, American? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I speak perfect English. And I'm like, okay, great. Like,
Yeah,
just
it's
take it from
great
there.
that a lot of like almost everyone speaks really well English
Mhm.
in, really good English in Europe. So that's really good. I mean, in France, I felt like they knew English, but they would say
They
words like
can
in English and in French, right? So, I mean, like, I don't feel any type of way about it because I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn French. You know what I mean? At
they
least
can get a
I'm,
little saucy about it. Like
yeah,
they'll be like, I speak English, but I'm not. Some of them can get like a little annoyed about like
a
speaking
hundred
it for
percent.
you.
They had a little bit of an attitude for sure,
I
but
have
I
a
respect them, you know?
I have a theory that like Parisians and New Yorkers have a lot in common because like I feel like they both have like this bit of like an energy of like you're bothering me type thing. Like, what do you
Yeah.
need?
Oh my God, yes, yes. And Italy was like completely the opposite. Like everyone was so friendly. Not everyone spoke English, but like I would speak to them in Spanish and they would answer me in Italy, in Italian, and I could understand. So like it was perfect, But everyone was so, so friendly and it reminded me so much of Spain, like the culture there of, like for example in Spain, you might go to restaurants and maybe they're full or whatever, so they'll be drinking and eating outside in the street, like literally in the street, even if there's not a table, right? And they had that culture too over there. People were just like so willing to help you out with everything, and questions and the history there, it's like crazy,
I really
crazy.
want to go to Italy. Like, I love all that stuff. Like,
God.
especially Rome. I really want to do Rome.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to go back to Rome because I feel like I wasn't able to do everything that I wanted to, but we went to the Colosseum, we went to the Vatican, we went to where else did we go? I don't know, we went to so many places, the Fontana de Trevi. It was so pretty and the food was so good.
I like I'm just like I'm really excited about like going there and just like eating all the pasta I want because
Yes.
I've heard that just because they don't have like the preservatives and stuff that like we do in the United States, like you'll be like, oh, I like ate to my heart's content and I somehow still lost weight like on that
A
trip.
100%. Plus, you're walking so much, in Europe, like you have to walk. You have to be able to see as much as you can. And like even eating cheese and stuff, like the food just tastes so different, right? It's so funny because, okay, so can pizza have tuna?
I've never had pizza with tuna, so I don't really have like a dog in the race.
Do you think that's weird?
I don't think so. Like I would say it's like not standard, but I'm pretty accepting of all pizzas. Like to treat all pizzas equally, you know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah, yeah. Like you're good with the pineapple in the
No, I
pizzas.
like pineapple. I'll stand
Okay.
like I have like a horse in the race with pineapple pizza. I enjoy it, I'll stand by it. Like pineapple and ham pizza, that's good. I just don't think I've had
Okay.
tuna on it before.
Okay, well, so when I came to, okay, tuna, I love tuna, right? But I don't like the US tuna. The US tuna like tastes weird to me. I don't know why, right? So like when I go to the supermarket, I get tuna that is with a Spanish brand, right? So anyway, so when I came to the US, I was ordering a pizza and I asked if they had pizza with tuna. And everyone, my friends, the waiter, everyone looked weird at me. They were like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like that's so weird. And then in Subway you can personalize your pizza, right? You can put whatever
Mhm.
you want. So I would tell people in Subway to put tuna in my pizza, right? Even though their tuna has mayo, that I thought it was a little weird, but whatever. That was my fix, right? For my tuna pizza, right? So everyone would tell me here that like tuna in your pizza is not a thing, right? So I went to Italy and I confirmed that tuna in your pizza is a thing.
Okay.
You like it is a thing,
So the
okay?
Italians are cool with it.
So the Italians put tuna in their pizza, yes. So my boyfriend's mom was in shock because I told her, I'm like, oh, I don't like the tuna from the US. And she was like, it's probably the same. You know what I mean? Like she looked at me like, you're a little weird, you know? And she tried the tuna in the salad and she was like, oh my God, this tuna is so great. You know, like people, if you guys go to Europe, try tuna. I know it's weird, but yeah, it's a thing.
It
Tuna
kind of
tastes
makes
amazing.
sense. Like, I wonder if it's just like where they're like getting it from. Just, I don't know how fishing works. Like, just different bodies of water. It's a little more sketch.
Yeah, it could be. I also feel like even the potatoes taste different in the US. I feel like they're a little more sweet. I feel like in Spain, for example, like the way my mom cooks, she doesn't put that much seasoning because the food already tastes, right?
Mhm.
Compared to here, sometimes I don't know, even the tomatoes to me, they taste weird or they just don't taste
Like
as good.
bland.
Yeah, so like of course you have to put more seasoning in your food here, I feel like. But yeah, no, food over there is amazing. You don't get bloated when you eat cheese, or lactose stuff. So yeah, I recommend it. And Rome was amazing, amazing with the history.
What was your favorite place that like you stopped at during the trip?
I feel like the Colosseum was insane. Like we were able to see the inside, like the grounds, the middle part and like where everyone was sitting.
Uh-huh.
I feel like also, you know how they have a lot of marble in their, churches
Like
or
architecture. Yeah.
cathedrals and stuff, right? So they are very kind of like I guess like friendly when it comes to, let's say that they want to build something different or historic, they'll move the marble from one place to another or the rocks from one place to another to create another like touristic monument or restore something. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also seeing Michelangelo's artwork, in the Vatican and stuff was amazing to me. The way how smart he was and learning about how, for example, whenever they did paintings, they weren't able to sign their names. So they would include a self-portrait of themselves in the painting. So I think that was crazy.
Oh, that's cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, so like if you look in some of the paintings, you'll be able to see Leonardo da Vinci in it, right? Or Michelangelo in it. So that was crazy, honestly. They have so much history and they were so smart. So I definitely recommend it.
I definitely want to do a cruise like sometime soon. I've only gone on one. It was to Bermuda, and that was like a great time. I went before I was like 18 though, or no, I went before I was 21. I think I was in high school at the time. I was under 18 too, but like I couldn't drink on it or anything,
Right.
but it was like a lot of fun. It'd be good to like go back as an adult, just like do the whole thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I definitely enjoy more the getting off the cruise and, like actually exploring.
Mhm.
And by the time I was back in the ship, I was so tired. So all I wanted to do was sleep. But I did get a day, like a whole day at sea. So, we got to like do all the cruise experience, eat a lot of food and stuff. So it was amazing.
Nice.
So talking about unlimited vacations, what do you prefer? And what is your opinion in it? Unlimited vacations versus like, having your hours that you have to take.
I feel like I'm actually kind of curious on it because like I know I've taken under the amount of vacation that I would have had like when we were in solution engineering. That's
Mhm.
like more by choice and I think just like getting comfortable with PM. I
Yeah.
think the flight like I don't know, like I wonder if it's like one of those things where as I get more just used to this profession that I'll like the unlimited more because like I feel like right now I'm still in that like phase of like rush mode, trying to prove myself. I'm like, there's
Yep.
so many things to do, so little time. So it's like management's like definitely wants me to take vacation. Like Jeff's been like telling me to take more and all that. And I might see about like taking some time around like right after New Year's. There's a presentation I have to prepare for. Um, I think it's going to be January 25th. I'm going to be doing a webinar on ORDS, which is like our REST API building platform. And one of the things that is going to be like really cool about it is I've played like the database tools team. We have a bunch of different products, and
Mhm.
I've been focusing on SQL CL, our command line for using databases. Chris with a C, Chris Hoyna,
Mhm.
he has been focusing on Oracle REST Data Services, ORDS, and that's been kind of like his product area. So it's like I've played around with boards with some stuff. I've had to use it with some projects, but I really haven't like sat down and like hard studied it.
Mhm.
So this presentation is actually going to be, or webinar is going to be pretty cool because the whole premise I have of it is going to be like, hey, when we were, it kind of goes back to like when we were in solution engineering, like and learning about APIs. That was like one of the most confusing concepts for me, like one of
Yeah.
the most like unintuitive. So I'm like looking at this webinar idea. I'm like, okay, our marketing stuff, the webinars our team's been pointing at, like putting out, have been doing great. Like we usually get around like 200 people live on the webinar while we present, and then like
Awesome.
another like 600 or so at least with each of the YouTube videos that we have. So I'm like, how do we, what's going to be some good content in like 2024 that we could do webinar style? And I'm like, what if I just basically did like an API 101 webinar where not just getting Oracle people, but also like students, anyone online who's searching like, what the heck is APIs? The
Mhm.
whole webinar is going to be me like the first half. Okay, here's what APIs are, here's what REST APIs are, and then the second half is like, here is why using the Oracle database for your REST APIs is like so convenient and easy through our ORDS like tool, and how you
Mhm.
can build your REST APIs like whether for your projects or your work or just for like education.
No, that's
Um,
amazing. That's a really good topic,
yeah.
actually, because I feel like that touches everyone right now.
Like I want that to be something that we're hooking not just people who are Oracle users, but just like I'm
Mhm.
really hoping that I can be smart around like marketing and promoting this and getting this out there
Mhm.
so that we can like just grab a bunch of people and bring them into the Oracle ecosystem because Chris has been doing like really successful presentations around ORDS. Like he's done some webinars on it. His have been like a bit more from my understanding, like the people who are already using ORDS or people who are more familiar with Oracle, I want to take advantage of the fact that like I'm learning as I go with creating this webinar to make
Yep.
sure I hit it from that perspective of like I'm not going to say anything above people's heads because I had to build this and learn it type thing. And like we're all kind of like in this boat together, like let me be your guide because I'm
Yep.
just like figuring it out. So to kind of like go back to the original question, that's coming up January 25th. Really excited about that. And I want to make sure I have enough time to like do that justice. And also it's going to take like good time because I still have to learn words as part of the process. So it's
Mhm.
like I want to this is exactly why like I don't take as much vacation as I should. Because I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to like take more vacation around New Year's. I'm like, well, I want to make sure I can do this thing really well, and I'm excited about this. So I think what I'm gonna do is I just need to make sure that presentation is in a good place.
Yeah.
Um, if just scheduling works out, maybe I'll take some days off, like right after our week that Oracle gives us leading up to New Year's off. If
Mhm.
I'm feeling a little crunched for time, maybe after the webinar, I'll take some like vacation around then because like my birthday is the end of January. So it's like I
Mhm.
want to take more time, but like that's kind of the big thing I'm focusing on outside my just like current responsibilities and whatnot. But like that's like I think that like literally just like illustrates the thing that's kind of hard about this is you just have so many like projects and stuff come up and I'm like, oh, like I want to make sure that I have time to do this the right way and all of it. And then next thing you know,
Exactly.
you get caught up. But yeah, I do think like as I get more settled in this role, I will be more comfortable just being like, hey, I didn't like I took like 14 days of vacation in 2023. Maybe in
Mhm.
2025, I take like 30 days and do like a hard unplug or something like that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I feel like it is hard to take vacation sometimes because there's always something that you want to work on, or there's something always that is coming up, and you're thinking of when's the time for you to take vacation. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's good that they also encourage you. I feel like our team also encourages definitely to take vacation. And we were definitely talking about being able to take that vacation all together because sometimes we get so, you know, focused on, oh, let me have a long weekend, but sometimes a long weekend is just not enough for you to
It's
reset.
not enough. Yeah, kind
It's
of like we
not.
were talking about, like just even with the time we did take, it took us a couple days just even to get out of that work mode.
Exactly, exactly. So, and even just letting go, right? Because at the beginning I was like, oh my God, I'm planning everything to the T in my vacation. And then suddenly I was like, you know what? Like, let's be spontaneous. We don't have to plan everything. I don't have a freaking, I don't know, Zoom invitation for everything that I have to be doing in this trip. Like we just have to go from like being super organized to sometimes just letting go and having fun.
That's something I'm actually pretty good at, and it's funny because Montana's not. Like even just with our trip for Thanksgiving to see her family in California, she's like, "Do you want to do this or this?" And we got to do this, and like Disney with this and this. I'm like, "Let's go with like the flow of it." Like she's so. I'm like, it's funny because I'm hyper organized with my work, and it's like I have a very hard time letting go of that control. But when
Yeah.
it's like I'm like, okay, I'm on relax time. It takes me a little bit of time to get into the relax mode, but I'm very much like, if I'm going to relax, I don't want to have to make decisions. Like, I just want to see where like I naturally wander with things. And I've always like really enjoyed that.
I feel like when you travel, that you have to have a mixture of both, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, like, especially for a cruise, like, you can't just go like winging it and,
oh no, and in Europe, oh my God, for example, my boyfriend wasn't able to make it to La Sagrada Familia. Have you heard of it in Barcelona?
uh-uh.
It's like that cathedral. It's pretty known. So you had to have like a month ahead of, like you had to make a reservation a month ahead of time. So he wasn't able to make that one. We weren't able to make a couple of things that we wanted to because, we had to pay more because we didn't make reservations. So it depends, right? But overall, sometimes it's just nice to have that friend that plans everything for you, when you're going on vacation because I'm definitely the planner, but I don't know if I told you the week before I went to Europe, I went to Medellin, Colombia, right? With my friends. It was their 30th birthday, and they planned everything, and it was so nice just to be guided. I was like, wow. I told my boyfriend, I'm like, you're gonna have to start planning some travel because I can't just be here the planner. I'm like stressing out about everything and it felt so nice. I felt like a kid. I didn't even have to think what I was gonna get fed. Like nobody was like, oh, what should we eat today? No, it was there. I
No,
just showed
literally. Those are my favorite. Like before I left for the trip, my like mom was like asking me these questions. She's like, "Oh, where are you flying into?" Like blah blah blah. Like wait, I'm like, I have no idea. Like I'm still like in.
I'm just showing
I'm like
off.
I'm still in work mode. I'm like that's a Friday problem. Like I'll get
Right.
to it then. No, I love being in that just like kid mode. Just point what direction I need
Literally.
to go.
It's like you stop being an adult for a little bit.
Those are my favorite moments.
But I do feel like a lot of people have mixed feelings about working like not working from home, sorry. From like having unlimited vacations to having set vacations. Like I've
Mhm.
heard people say, for example, that when you are when you're like flexible when it comes to vacation, a lot of people tend to take less vacations because they get caught up on, we have to do this, we have to do that, or they might even be a little like shy to ask for vacation, right? Like
Mhm.
especially the proving yourself, right? Of being like, okay, I'm not gonna ask for vacation because I don't wanna feel like I'm like they I don't want them to feel like I'm taking advantage of this, right? So it's kind of like a gray area compared to when you have your set amount of vacations, right? Like for the year, they tell you, oh, if you don't take these vacations, you're losing them. Or basically you can accumulate a couple of those days, but up to this point, right? So that's why I feel like some people are like, oh, we don't like the flexible vacations. And some people are like, yeah, we do like them. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I like them because I don't have to keep up with like the time stuff, like of logging my times on like, oh, this is the day that I took vacations and stuff like that. But how do you feel about that? Do you think that's true? Do you think there's like a, system where we can come up with, taking advantage of actually doing the unlimited vacations the right way?
Yeah, I do think it's really dependent on environment. Like especially with tech, it's hard because I've definitely heard stories about like companies having the unlimited vacation policy and like I'm trying to think of a good word, like kind of like soft pressuring people into not taking it, especially if you're say in like a startup or like fast moving environment where it's like, oh yeah, you have unlimited vacation, but good luck keeping up with your stuff if you use it. And it's like you're worried about letting other people down and become the bottleneck and all that. That's one of the things that is very good about Oracle, like
Yeah.
at least with the area that we are in, is like all of my not taking vacation is like completely self-inflicted and like on me. And
Hmm.
even just like with planning everything, um, I I like to still just track when I take off just so I can kind of keep myself honest. Like
Yeah.
I really liked in my OneNote, I do a pretty good job about not like perfect, but I'll track generally most of the activities I do. And then with vacation or like days I'm sick with that, just to keep myself accountable and like know where I stand with things, just so I kind of have that record to look to if I ever need it. But
Hmm.
I feel like with product management, especially an established company like Oracle, where it's like you're in a role that's if you are interested in it, you can ride this as a career path for a while and you do think a
Hmm.
little bit more long term. I think the unlimited vacation is going to be better in that regard,
Yeah.
especially as I get more efficient in my work. I get more knowledgeable about the database so I can get more done and I don't feel like I'm kind of running at full speed to
Yeah.
just like keep pace. So like I think in those environments it's probably better, but yeah, if you're in like an environment where they're not great about encouraging taking time of unlimited and you're not taking it, it's like yeah, just having that fixed amount of days to take, especially because like if you ever leave, it's like you get paid out on your vacation, which is important too.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, I think what you said is totally right. It depends on the environment. Like we're pretty lucky because I do feel like even like your manager encourages you to take time off. My manager, she's always like, well, like first of all, we definitely talk to each other to make sure that, we're not going to leave something that it's really important to get done,
Mhm.
without getting it done. But I feel like the encouragement is super important when it comes to taking that break, right? Because some people feel so pressured, especially if you're starting your career. You might be like, you know what, I'm not going to take any time off because I have to catch up to everything that everyone else is doing, right? And how comfortable they are in the position. But even if you don't have the space, let's say, to where you feel like your manager is telling you to take time off, you should definitely bring it up, right? Because I think it's such an important part of your life to take some time off. And I just bring it up because my friend kind of said it in a psychological way of like, oh, people that have unlimited time take less time than people that have set amount of time, you know?
It's too ambiguous. Like you have to get
Yeah.
used to that ambiguity because it makes it hard.
Exactly, because not your managers are not like, hey, you have 15 days off, you know, you haven't taken them this year, you know. It's more of like you should voice your, you know, your thoughts and basically say, hey, I need some time off, you know.
Yeah, like on that note, that's like I would say one of the probably the biggest points I've been working on getting better with, especially the
Mm,
past couple months in like product management, is there's like so much ambiguity and you have like so much like responsibility with things that you really don't like you don't have that like someone telling you what to do things. It's very
right.
off the rails and it's something that I absolutely like love and like my whole like work personality is pretty much like I like being given the responsibility and freedom to do things, and I don't like red tape, gatekeepers, stuff like that. But it is
Mm,
funny because even though my personality is, let's say, oriented towards that direction, just getting used to this role, even I'm still like, oh my, like sometimes I'm just like, there's so much like ambiguity with things. I'm like, can like an adult just tell me like what to do for like just a couple days and I'll go back to like, you know what I mean? Just
yeah, I 100%
like
understand
finding
you on that.
structure and just basically like being that like the bottom line person over like what your actions are, it can
Mhm.
like it can get overwhelming at times. And it is like funny
Yeah.
because I do think that getting this role at the age that we're at, like our like mid to late 20s, it makes you grow up quicker, which I think is like could be a very good thing where it's like with solution engineering, it's like we had like good responsibility, but everything was like still very much on rails compared to where we're at now. And like
Yeah.
even just like talking with Jeff about this, he was saying he's like, yeah, like anyone going into being a product manager like at a company, he's like, there's not really anyone who's not gonna feel overwhelmed at first in the role and just like kind of lost in the chaos just because there's so much to get used to and like have to find your rhythm around. And like even now, like I would say like the hardest challenge I'm currently working on is I went from this cloud world environment
Mhm.
where leading up to cloud world, I was like, I'm just gonna completely zone in and lock on to tasks that I have to do, like building these presentations, getting these workshops done, practicing everything because like I don't have a choice. And I was like kind of in this like startup sprint mode because of it. But then it's like after Cloud World, I've been realizing that it isn't as easy as I thought it would be to get out of that like sprint startup-y type
Mhm.
mindset and into treating this more like a marathon, which I have to do because I'm like, oh, there's like all these things that I want to get done.
Mhm.
And I go in my brain, like, I think I can get this done by this point. And I think my calculation, sometimes I'm wildly off with like how long I think stuff's gonna take me. And Jeff knows that. And there's been some funny moments, but like I do feel like when I make certain calculations along how like in terms of how long stuff will take me, a lot of times I'm pretty good like at being on track. If random wild cards don't come my
Mhm.
way and interrupt me. The problem with this job is like part of the job is the fact that you never know what's going to come in your inbox, what you're going to have to pull away to like help from, and all of these things. So it's like I've been noticing I've been kind of working through these like frustrations of like there's these two or three big projects that I really
Mhm.
want to do, and it's like it's super impactful when I get done. And I'm like, oh, if everything goes according to plan, I should be able to get this done in this general time frame. But then like life in this role happens and you get pulled your thousand different directions.
Right.
And you're like, I'm behind on not external like expectations. Like it's not like my VP or manager are kind of breathing down my neck about this, but like my
Yeah.
own internal expectations about this. So then I like take that and then I go more like I'm more likely to like try to like start sprinting again and just like out of stubbornness be like, no, I want to force these things forward, which can just like lead to burnout and all the other things that like we've experienced before. So like
Exactly.
it's interesting. Like I'm kind of grappling with that whole we have so much freedom and ambiguity, and it can feel like we're a bit like floaty with space, but just like on
Mhm.
this theme of just taking the time you need in terms of vacations, and you don't really know what's going to happen with this job and like navigating the chaos. It's interesting how like even after like coming up like we're like a year and a half into the role, something like that, that's still kind of like a major thing that we're getting used to and probably is like the main challenge of this job, I would say.
Right. It's also like the fact that we're in technology, right? Because we might go on vacation and come back and there's been a release
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, I need to like relearn my product,
Yeah,
because they've changed this and that, or there's a new release and the interface changes and you're like, okay, let me go, going back to that. There's just so much change all the time,
it
right?
never feels like you're standing on solid ground. It feels like you're always on like shifting sand. And I think that's like also why I get like stubborn and a bit like bullish in terms of like I just want to charge ahead on this thing because I know that like the more time that I get away from something, the more things are going to change up. And it's like, it's
You're
my
gonna have
product. I'm still
to.
like, wait, we changed this. I'm like, oh, shoot, I got used to that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and also even like what you were saying of like, sometimes you ask your manager for guidance or something, right? Like I feel like I find myself all the time asking for let's say approval in some way of like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm about to do this, like you don't want to mess up. So you're like, I'm about to do this. Is that okay? I'm
Yeah.
thinking we should change this. Is this okay? Like it's always kind of like making sure that you're making the right moves, because you're not very sure as of right now. And it's crazy because you just said it would be here for a year and a half or even a little more. No, actually, no, yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah, I started March. When did you start? I was March of 22.
Yeah, no, I think I started a week before you,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, so like we're
So
coming up on 2 years in this
exactly.
March.
But there's still so much to learn. And
Mhm.
I feel like the best part of being or at least I really like that, is that like being a product manager, I don't know how that works for other companies, but like at Oracle, I've gotten the opportunity to work on so many different things. Like I'm not put in a box, you know what I mean? I'm not
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm a product manager that is inbound or outbound, and you can only do this type of tasks because you're this product manager. No, I'm doing like everything that I can think of that I can, it can give me a good sense of what a product manager is and actually work on whatever I like, so be able to be like, you know what, I actually like this. I'm really good at this. I'm going to focus on this, and keep on trying other things that I might like in the future, or not like. But I feel like that's such a great thing. But at the same time, I still feel like I need approval. Like I still feel like I need to go back to Melly and be like, hey, does this make sense? Can I post this? Is this okay?
Yeah. I've been thinking about literally that exact same thing the past couple weeks where like in my head when I'm like messaging Jeff about something, I'm like, do I really need to ask him? I'm like, is this too much like running to a parent being like, am I allowed to do this? Like, but
Literally.
it's also it's like I do think it's important to run things by Jeff and
Mhm.
Melly, and it's like I guess the way I was like shifting the perspective in my head is like when I'm not positive whether I should ask Jeff something, like I ask myself the question, why am I asking him this? Is it just because I'm afraid of making an action on my own?
Like,
Or am I working on something complicated and I want someone to check my homework before I turn it in?
mhm.
And I think that's kind of like helped made me feel better about it because like I'll still like go and be like, hey, like I'm thinking this, this, and this. I'm gonna file like a bug on this. Just get a second pair of eyes on it because like that's important, especially in this job because
Yep.
we stare at so much information. It's like you could just save yourself a lot of stress just by having someone else who understands like just verifying and reviewing. But yeah, and like it is interesting because it's like we're still in this kind of we're in this weird thing where I feel like we no longer I feel like I'm currently at a place where I've proven myself as like a full product manager and I'm
Mhm.
capable of like doing my thing and standing on my own. But we are still kind of like in a training type of scenario versus
Yeah.
say someone like Jeff who's been doing this for 10 years where it's like, yeah, I can stand my own ground, but still take advantage of the fact that we have someone with so much like knowledge and experience and it's like this still feels like an apprenticeship kind of thing like
Right.
and like that's kind of like how I've like thought of like Jeff being my manager and just like where I fit in this org's relationship is like even when
Mhm.
we're independent and operating on our own, the reason why like you have Melly, Killian has Dom, I have Jeff, is just because they have so much years of experience and wisdom where it's like they're trying to impart it on us. And that's not like all just like asking a parent for approval. That's like, no, like we need seeing how they think through these things, even if we're sure our answer is fine, is like
Yeah.
good for digesting some of that wisdom and however many X years of experience they have. So it is kind of interesting to think of that like dichotomy.
Like I want to tell myself all the time that I'm asking now so that in the future I don't have to be asking all these questions, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to build this intuition little by little as I see that, maybe whenever I get a yes, it's like, okay, this makes sense. I'm gonna continue doing this, right? And whenever I get a no, there's something that I have to fix, right? So that in the future I can just make my own decisions. But it definitely feels like I'm asking my mom for permission
No,
to
yeah.
do something.
No, and like I feel like that's also a good way of like, and this is just for anyone with their job, a good way of getting around that fear of asking a stupid question is thinking about in terms of like, okay, I have this question I think might be stupid or make me like seem dumber than my ego
Once,
thinks my level of knowledge is at. But like I would rather ask the question now than
yep,
sit on it and then in another year ask the question kind of thing. Because I'm like, well, the best time to like ask the question is yesterday, so I might as well just ask it now. So my fear of asking like a question I should know by now, it's like that can only get worse. Like if you have a question that you're worried about asking because you're like, oh, should I have already known this by now kind of thing in this role? Well, if you don't figure it out, then the more time that passes, the more that fear and that monster is just going to build because it gets fed on the fact of like how much time has already passed.
exactly. Yeah. It also really depends on like the relationship you have with your manager in general, So we're lucky that we have a really good relationship with our managers, for sure.
I was just thinking of like, there's no way we could do this because it just put people on blast. I'm like, it'd be, but for a second, my brain was like, it'd be cool if we could like get someone who's in like a really toxic product manager job, bring them on the podcast and just hear about like all the stuff that their like org does wrong in terms of these things. But like, because I am curious. It's like because we only have our experience, and it's like we hear rumors about teams and stuff where
Mhm.
will do some like toxic stuff, whether it's on purpose or like accidentally.
Yeah.
I like to believe that most people aren't malicious, and it's like
Yeah.
it's accidental, but like the effects still happen. But it is it is interesting because like the more I learn about this job and the more I kind of like get deeper into it, I'm like, oh, this is already extremely difficult with
Hmm.
having the right resources that I do. How do people manage if they don't have those resources that they need to
Exactly.
back them up?
Yeah, like I've watched TikTok. Honestly, I haven't really heard bad experiences inside of Oracle that much, but
Mhm.
I've watched TikToks where people will say things like, if if you're dealing with that coworker that talks on top of you every time you're in a meeting, and I'm like, oh, that's so mean, or like if you have that coworker that says that you're doing everything wrong, I'm like, wow, like that's crazy that people have to be giving advice about that. But it's what you're saying. So people are not malicious. It's just doing it without really even thinking.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like,
I think most of it's just like unconscious patterns that you're not aware of. That's why it's being I feel like especially being a remote. I wonder if like remote or not remote has something to do about this, but I
mm,
feel like I almost take it too far.
mm,
But the reason why I'm always looking for just like feedback and kind of like, how'd I do on this? Or like, was I okay here? Like, blah, 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 is just because it's like, the last thing I want is just those like unconscious patterns to have like negative ripple effects, especially because we're at such like a focal point of our role where we can
mm,
like really mess things up if either we try or like we just are ignorant to stuff. Like the same way how we can have like such a big multiplier effect just by where we're positioned in the company. It's like it can go the opposite way and just thinking about those kind of things. It's like I'd rather try to polish up these habits and stuff the earlier in my career as possible.
100%.
It's just like it's just kind of scary to think about. I'm like, oh, it's like, and I'm thinking about now. I'm like, imagine when you're like a VP of a company and you're just having a bad day or your brain's just not working. And it's like now like someone doesn't feel like acknowledged or someone's like work goes like whatever and they're taking it personally and like all this stuff. Like the ripples, the more that you become an adult and you find yourself with responsibility, regardless of what your job is or what you do, I think that's like a big thing you kind of start to get into in like early 30s and for people who kind of had opportunities like us, like late 20s, is realizing that like the more responsibility that we have, like the more that our actions just kind of ripple, especially because people are dependent on us. And that's both like
Right.
a cool thing that gives our work meaning because the last thing I would want is to have some job where it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't make an impact, no one cares. Because like, well, why am I even getting out of bed in the morning? But like the other
Exactly.
side of it is like it does fill us what we're doing with meaning, but it's also like scary because it's just like it feeds that sense of like I don't want to mess up because I don't want to let people down. It's like, but I'm also human and I know I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna
Exactly.
have the days where it's like mentally I'm checked out and I can't help it, or I'm tired, or I'm just like cranky and in a pissy mood. It's like
Hmm.
contending with all of that and trying to like manage it the best you can.
Do you feel like you need to have like two different personalities at work? Like you need to have like the professional Zach and the real Zach outside of work, like, or do you mix both or?
Yeah, that's actually something that's like funny because I've thought about this a lot. I think there's like kind of two parts to the answer. Like, I do think that there's like in general, and I honestly think doing things like this podcast and just getting older have helped me with this.
Mhm.
But there's like there's like two sides of my personality. There's like the super silly, can be like provoky, like inappropriate at times, Zach, like that just likes to be mischievous and like get into nonsense. But and this isn't even like necessarily work. This is just even with like how I run my life, like life planning,
Right.
finances, etc. And then there's like the serious, like super locked in focus Zach, where it's like I'm very much just like in calculation mode.
Mm.
I've gotten more comfortable the older I've gotten and the more I've like been in my job being myself. Like, yeah, I can't like I'm also not like crazy or anything. I'm not like I'm not like absurdly like going around being like chaotic, but
Yeah.
I do feel like there is a bit of just being more comfortable being yourself, like personality wise
Yep.
and stuff, in your role. And I feel like the more that you feel like you're able to be yourself and like you're accepted for who you are, the more you don't really feel like repressed in terms of the needs of like hiding parts of your personality. Like I can be jokey in my job and like I like to like crack jokes and be like lighthearted at times, but I don't have to be like absurd. But I do think that there is a side in terms of like work personality versus outside work personality
Mhm.
that is kind of apparent. Is like if you're in those days where you're just really tired or cranky or like just you're feeling burnt out because you're like been struggling on something or working too much. I do think that there is like a tendency at times where you kind of have to just put the wall up so you don't let it leak out in inappropriate situations. If you're
Yep.
just like, you know what, I'm like really not feeling it today and I'm just trying to survive mode, like that's when you kind of put that
Well,
mask, yeah, that like mask, that wall. But I think that's like something that everyone has to deal with.
yeah.
And that's the, I like, that's something that like, I think that when I go through those time periods where I feel that way, it's like I have a tendency to kind of like go into myself and shut down. But going back to what we were talking about, like vacation and getting away, it's like I feel like honestly, those moments where I get more pent up, I feel like I'm shutting down. I'm like trying to just kind of keep like frustration or whatever. And like I just like want to like scream, but like I don't really know what I want to even like I don't even want to scream at anyone or anything in particular, just like
Right.
some
You're just feeling it.
general like that death by a thousand paper cuts kind of thing. Getting
Mhm.
away, like getting good night's sleep,
It helps a
getting
lot.
a good workout, I'll get out of it and be like, oh, I was just burnt out and run down and I need to stop thinking about work for a couple days. Like it's not there's not some like existential like I can't be who I am in my job kind of thing. It's just
Mhm.
more like I feel like it's almost like this more of like a repression or you're not taking you're so focused on the tasks in front of you in your role that
Mhm.
you're ignoring the things that your body needs or your mind needs
Mhm.
outside of it and like you feeling like you have to like lock up and go in that repression mode it's just because you're ignoring yourself and those like internal screams are just getting louder and louder like hey stop ignoring me there's things you have to attend to and like I think that's especially like hard for like A types and people like us who like take our jobs seriously because you get so focused on the task and like part of what makes people successful is like hey there's going to be roadblocks and obstacles but it's kind of like suck it up deal with the pain and move forward but it's like and sometimes you do just need to kind of put those blinders on and move but like that's kind of like what I was getting at with the running versus sprinting but you
Yeah.
like yeah sometimes you'll have to sprint but you can't always sprint otherwise like you're gonna crack and there's gonna
Mhm.
be like negative consequences of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like, for example, for me, when I started working at Oracle, I was very divided in this is Ramu outside of work and this is Ramu at work. And one of the barriers that I would put myself was definitely not asking the questions that I wanted to ask because I was scared that I was going to sound stupid, right? So
Yeah.
that was like my professional Ramu because in reality, when I'm like outside of work, I would probably ask those questions because those were my questions and I didn't care what other people thought, right? But at work, it was more of like, I'm not going to, or I'm not, if they ask something very personal, I'm not going to answer, you know?
Mhm.
And especially with like, you know, how every year, I feel like a lot of companies send surveys to their employees asking them how they're feeling, you know, how they feel about their team and stuff like that, right? Like I was very much like not like I would answer honestly, of course, but I would never really share why I was answering that way, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I feel like now I've learned to have a balance of, you know what, I'm gonna voice my opinion. If people are asking, I'm going to be honest with people and I'm actually going to give them my opinion, not my, oh no, everything is great, you know, just because I'm scared I'm gonna get fired or something, you know? Because
Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest problem of like the person having the second personality at work, you know, of like, oh, I'm professional Ramu right now. I'm not going to say anything dumb. I'm not going to voice my opinion or say whatever I really think because I'm scared of being fired, you know, and everything's gonna be terrible, right? Being so extreme with your thoughts.
Yeah, like
So yeah.
I definitely like, yeah, like kind of like you said, it's like I feel like it's like blended for me over time, where it definitely like started with there was Hannah Montana Zach and Miley Cyrus Zach. You know, I have a sister, if that's like the reference my brain goes to. But
Really?
uh, the fact that that was funny that that's the analogy I used. But no, but like, yeah, but over time I have gotten more comfortable
Yeah.
where not feeling like I need to just be so, I don't know if polished is the right word, but like filtered. Because like also it's like you
Mhm.
do need to communicate. It's like if stuff's bothering
Exactly.
you, it's like and you're just kind of keeping it back because you're worried about saying the wrong thing,
Yeah.
that's just gonna make your life worse. And like the times where kind of going back to like keeping things in like repression type thing, like the times where I've started to get frustrated and
Hmm.
I've like held back, it's like almost because like I'm worried about like saying the wrong thing and just like all those questions of like, how is this going to affect my career? Or like, I
Exactly.
need this person's approval because if I'm gonna move up, like they have to check the box and stuff. It's like can't you can't go like pissing them off kind of thing.
You have to like
But
me.
yeah, like and that is true. It's like you can't go like out there and be like, hey Buster, this is what I like really feel about you. But it's like a lot of the times you're like, do I actually feel that way about this
Right.
person? Or am I just frustrated and feel like I need to communicate something and like this is something that can be solved type thing? Because
Yeah.
it's funny because do you have like any idea where it came from with you, like in terms of that feeling of needing to have like your like the two personalities, like especially when we say like started at Oracle or something? Because like I think for me, I can
Yeah.
actually kind of like pinpoint it pretty much, like pretty easily. I think it like
Mhm.
just came from this like attitude of I don't know, it's like education was always like super honed on growing up and like
Yeah.
as a kid it's like kids are wild and you need to like learn how to be like disciplined and behave and be organized, so there is a bit of like that you do have to learn to fit into a mold.
100.
And like just going through the whole process of getting good grades, like not getting the tension in school, and especially for the college process with it being so competitive, especially
Mhm.
these days, it's like you have your like your college interviews and you need to put up a front. It's like you're trying to paint this picture of you're not just like some like dumb teenage boy who likes making like inappropriate jokes with his friends and like messing around. Like, no, you're like, I am so and so. These are my extracurriculars. Look at my
Exactly.
impressive report card, and here's how I want to change the world so I can get into your prestigious university. And then, like, even with jobs, like the whole job interview period, it's like you're
100%.
still, it's like you're a college kid. It's like you're getting drunk with your friends and you're like, whatever, like going through that even if you don't have Greek life, it's like that kind of stage of life where you're like independent now. You're going to be
Yeah.
rebellious. You're going to be a little wild. And there is that kind of interesting juxtaposition between that side of yourself and like the side that's trying to prepare yourself for like the quote unquote real world. And
Hmm.
like, I think it's like that's like, at least with me, that's where it kind of like came from, where it's like there was always this sense of you need to there's some authority figure out there that
Yeah.
you have to impress, and if you're not like extremely political, there's 1,000 people out there who are willing to be a little bit more political and know how to say the right thing. But
Yeah.
like yeah, but it's like now that I'm kind of like in a position where I'm proving myself a bit, it's like I'm not you're not in that kind of environment. It's also it's like you've grown up a bit, you're a little bit mature, and you're realizing that like everyone is just a human being, and it's like they're the
Exactly.
same as you. It's like there's days where it's like I don't want to be at work today, or it's like I'd rather be doing this, etc. I I
Mhm.
think there's more room for honesty once you, and not in like in a taking things out of control kind of way, but like in a, you can bond more and have better communication by being your real authentic self rather than trying to like treat your career like a politician. And I think that's like something I have to like I've had to personally get more comfortable with.
I think it depends, right? Like there's places for everything, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your own personality and point of view when you're at work, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying, okay, yeah, like maybe you shouldn't talk about politics at work, But when it comes to like voicing your opinion when it comes to things that are affecting you, you should definitely do that. And I think that was something that wasn't really emphasize when you're in school, right? Because in school they'll be like, when you're working, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, like you have to be mindful of your boss or whoever is higher up than you, or you shouldn't be asking stupid questions, I think they don't really say that to you, but they're more of like, you have to look professional, but then nobody knows what professional is neither, like professional is, yeah, definitely don't get drunk at work,
Yeah.
but what else is professional, right? So sometimes because we don't really know where the line is, we might not raise our opinion because we might think that everything is putting us at risk of losing our job, not getting that promotion, or maybe they might think this about me, so they won't like me and they're my teammates, right? So I feel like that's something that I've definitely learned of raising my opinion, in the right proper way, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
not attacking anyone, I'm just talking for myself, And a lot of the times, a lot of people in your team feel the same way as you, right? It's just that nobody has said it or whatever. So I think it's worth raising your opinion, even if it's a little bit comfortable. Having those uncomfortable, conversations, even with your manager or with your teammate, if something's not working.
Yeah, I feel like also from like a getting into the mindset of Gen Z, it's we're one of like Gen Z's, I would say, biggest challenges and why this is something like so top of mind of us is like we grew up in this like weird historical moment
Mhm.
where we came up during the internet era. So it's like all of a sudden you're connected with all these people all around the world, all these different cultures, backgrounds, values, etc. Versus
Mhm.
historically, when you grow up, it's like you're pretty much geographically confined to a certain thing. So it's like you know
Yeah.
exactly what is and isn't okay because you all have the same cultures, value, religion, background, a lot of times like even like ethnicity too. And
Mhm.
like with this whole like internet era thing, it's like we're having this like weird melting blending pot where no
Mhm.
one knows anymore like what's up, what's down, what's right, what's wrong, like what's okay,
Right.
what's not. And you throw into like the fact where especially like a tech company, it's like you're working around the like with people around the world with so many different backgrounds that it's like there's no, everything is so ambiguous that
Mhm.
it, like I think that like is why we're extra timid and like worried about like how we appear, what we say, like, oh, not even necessarily like the problem isn't what I meant by this thing, it's how can this thing be interpreted by
Yeah.
anyone? Because it's like if you were to throw out like a situation on the internet and be like, everyone give your thoughts, like, is this right, wrong, okay, not okay? It's like you'll get
Everyone
like
has something perspective.
everyone has their own perspective, and you have next thing you know, you have like a Reddit forum where everyone's yelling at each other about how the other side's evil or whatever. And like especially
But
just in
yeah.
this like weird era of like trying to silence like and cancel people who like disagree with you, and you
Mhm.
just you put something out on the internet and now it's like basically there for forever, and like you can say something like 10 years ago or whatever, like you're constantly being judged by everyone. And like yeah, like work environment's a little bit different because like you're not putting everything out there, but like we kind of
Right.
grew up seeing what happens to people who say the wrong thing at the wrong time. even if
Yeah.
it was like innocent and regardless of their intentions, and if they kind of came from like a good place. And it's
Mhm.
just weird. It just makes you, it makes you more fearful. It makes you more timid. And rather than just like trust people's, like trust people to like know where you come from, it's like you're like, I'd rather just not take the risk of saying anything rather than like there's just rather than like having to worry about like the downside of like how can this be taken.
Exactly.
So it is
Exactly.
interesting. It's like I do I wonder how it's going to go. Like I wonder what's going to happen as our generation gets older with it, because it's like I don't
Right.
know, it's like I feel like for us kind of like I was saying, it's like I've gotten more comfortable being myself and like realizing like, oh,
Yeah.
like not everyone's just going to hate me for being a human being kind of thing. But
Yeah.
especially when you start your career and coming out of that school phase where there's so much expectations and there's this like this thought process of like, well, if I mess up on my college interview, I'm not gonna get into good school. And if I don't get into the good school, I won't get the good job. And if I don't get the good job, I'm gonna like end up just like in a financial hole or something and be screwed for the rest of
Right.
my life. It's like these it's like a combination of like imagined fears and real consequences that makes for
Yeah.
like an interesting paradigm.
And I feel like from the personality of like being professional and unprofessional, something that I definitely take when I'm at work is, I don't know, just like a very basic example, right? Someone gives you feedback about your work and you might take it personal or you might not take it personal, you know? When someone's telling me that I did something wrong, I definitely try my best to not take it personal, to be honest. Like, I'm just like, this is just a reflection of my work, you know? And of course, my work is me at this point, you know? But at the same time, I'm just going to be like, you know, like they're not attacking me personally. So when I'm about to ask uncomfortable questions, I always tell myself, like, this is just a work situation, right? So, like, that's kind of like a push for me to ask that uncomfortable question, you know? What's the worst that can happen? They say no. That doesn't mean they're going to hate me, you know? So I feel like you just have to have a, like, I'm not saying it's good to have a professional personality all the time, right? But there are like some things where you can be like, I'm going to be professional on this in this aspect, you know, especially when it comes to conflict and giving people feedback, right? Like, you're not really giving the person feedback, or you're not really trying to hurt the person, you're just trying to make their work better, you know. And that's how I try to tell myself I'm going to approach having a, you know, uncomfortable conversation. That I've never really had an uncomfortable conversation, but maybe it's just like, wow, I need to ask Melly to see if I can get this day off, you know.
Yeah. And I like literally like every time I've had a fear about like bringing something up and just being like
Yeah,
hesitant, it's like it's all of
it's
my
not
fears have like ended up just being in my head, like kind of thing. Like as a caveat though, I do think it is good, especially when you start out right out of college and the workforce, because you are gonna be like unpolished and you're still
yeah.
basically a kid. It's like err on the side of caution. It's like you should I do still like it's kind of funny because it's like, yeah, we started a bit more with that professional Zach and Ramu and like not professional and they kind of blend over time, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
better it is better to be safe with that because like you don't
Yeah.
you're a kid, you're like you're gonna be more mature when you're 22 fresh out of school or you're like 20 interviewing for your internship than you're gonna be at like 26, 27, 28. It's like kind of learn the atmosphere you're in first and
Just test the
yeah,
waters, right? Like, look around
yeah,
you,
like
how
that's a
people
perfect
are.
way. Like test the waters, but also it's like people want to meet the real version of you. They don't want this because that people don't connect with that. It's like if you just like have that
Mhm.
like whatever that like work persona that's just cold and uninviting. It's like yeah, there's gonna be times like especially you're meeting someone for like the first time. It's like you play it safe, but the way you get stuff done, you actually communicate more effectively and you build these relationships that allow you to accomplish these like cool things and whatever your career path can be. It's like that's by building genuine human connection. And if you're always worried about like people screwing you over for saying the wrong thing, it's like
Oh my
you're
God,
gonna
yeah.
you're gonna go through life like not having a fulfilling life because it's like
You're gonna be so miserable.
yeah, it's like you're not gonna like exactly like it's just gonna make you miserable. So it is interesting because like we're in such a weird era where like these things are such more intense questions. Like they've always been around like one form or another. Because
Right.
different environments have their different cultures and what's okay and what's not okay. But we're just like in such an intense era in terms of the potential magnitude of things. It's odd to see.
Yeah, for sure. So moral of the story, we do a blend of both, right? I feel like you and me,
Yeah.
we do a blend of both.
Yeah.
We're
If you
just
get
not
called in
letting
the
it
HR,
out.
don't blame me, but also don't be a square.
Right? Yeah.
Ugh.
So do you think this is a good time to come to an end?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. That was technically managing 17. See you all in a month.
Bye, everyone.